Hey everybody, this is Rudy Sarza with The Dash, and today's guest is the one and only, actually my Quiet Riot bass brother, Sean McNabb.
Little brother.
Little brother. How you doing?
Oh, I'm great, man. Thanks for having me.
Well, not only are you a musician, but also you're an actor. You're an entrepreneur because you're building bikes,
motorcycles.
Motorcycles.
Yep.
And
passionate about that.
And you model some fashion.
That's more the wife, I just tag along.
Because I've seen you at some LA functions, the fashion show.
Yeah. Or
fashion week. Is it fashion week here in LA?
It is. It just finished last week, and the missus is super into that, and she's got a lot of her kids.
Yeah. And for the listeners out there, your wife is
Christine Devine.
Fox
11 News.
Yeah, she's wonderful. We watch her every night. And sometimes she's in the daytime.
Yeah, they're 5 and 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
I watch a lot of news. So if you're ever going, who's that guy on Channel 7? I probably know who he is.
Well, that's the people you hang out with. I mean, as a matter of fact, one time I went to a dinner that you guys invited me to, and it was an incredible combination, very eclectic.
Yes.
People from Christine's, past, friends and co-workers, and then current anchor people that she works with.
And we had rock stars like you there, and that was a fun night, wasn't it?
I think I came along so you had somebody to talk to.
Thanks.
Because you were my date. We sat next to each other.
You did me a solid on that one, Roots. Thank you.
It was great. I had a wonderful time. It was really a magical event. And then we played some game at the end of it. I did really bad.
I don't remember
it was like
that.
A table game. That you had to there were like little pieces of paper passed along.
Oh,
and you read them and you had to respond to it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh man, I don't know.
Was that the only time you guys ever played that?
I think so. Oh, wow. That's probably why I can't remember.
It wasn't the sake, was it?
No, it certainly wasn't the sake.
You haven't touched the sake in a long time.
I have not. I'll be 14 years sober. And,
I'm 20.
That's awesome.
I am 20. Yeah,
that's awesome. In November, I'm going to have 14 years, which is an absolute miracle. Because it wasn't always that way.
Yeah, I mean, I know exactly how you feel about it. Yeah. My journey might have been a little bit different because I had an out of body experience.
Okay.
The day that I quit drinking. We had been 20 years ago, 1997. Actually, 21 years ago. Wow. We had just come from a place called El Coyote.
I remember it.
El Coyote. It's a Mexican, old-fashioned Mexican restaurant in Hollywood.
Food. Yeah,
great food. Great margaritas.
Oh, man.
And as a matter of fact, when I first met my wife-to-be, in 1981, that was kind of like our headquarters. We used to go there for lunch. I was playing with Ozzy at the time, so when I was in town, I wanted to party.
Yeah. And
I was partying with my girlfriend, my wife, who became my wife. And, man, we used to go to El Coyote all the time. And, we used to make, let's say, if we were going to buy a place, it had to be a certain distance from El Coyote because we didn't want to drive too far.
Yes.
After having all the margaritas, you know. And so... I was in a situation where I became an angry drunk.
You?
Yeah, I was in a band situation. I was, I'm not going to go into details and names because it doesn't matter to the story. But the fact is that alcohol I started drinking after the shows just because of the way things were shaped. It had become, and one day we had just come from El Coyote, and for some stupid reason, nothing to do with anything, which usually is what happens when you're drinking. You start, being an asshole not because of what's going on. It just builds up to that.
Yes.
It has to do with other stuff.
Yep.
And I became like the ultimate asshole. And I actually had an out-of-body experience. I saw myself drunk. I floated. And I'm looking at myself, yelling at my wife. And I'm going, I'm never going to be that guy again. And I woke up the next day. That was it.
Wow.
That was it.
That's cool. I wish I would have had that experience, because I was probably an asshole more times than I'd like to admit, but that's really cool that you were able to notice it and to make a change like that, just that fast.
Yeah, I think sobriety is really a gift.
Yeah, because it's such a gift.
Yeah, we come into this world and we're clean, we're pure, and then because of whatever environmental reasons, whether it's peer pressure from friends or whatever you happen to be doing as a vocation or whatever, along the way, you start getting certain bad influence, that you either do them or you don't. And I'm pretty sure you had this experience, when you first came to LA, when you first were making yourself notice around town, what was the party scene like for you?
Well, it was all on back in those days.
Being what year is that?
I guess that would have been like 86, the end of 86, 87, before. Yeah, it would have been 86.
That's around the time you joined Quiet Riot?
Yeah,
that's right. Okay.
I got super lucky, Rudy, because I moved out here. I helped a girl move from Louisville, Kentucky, and she goes, "You can stay on my couch for 2 months if you help me move in this U-Haul."
So you're originally from Louisville?
No, I'm from Indiana. Bloomington, Indiana.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah,
great.
And it's funny that you mentioned the El Coyote, because I remember meeting people like Betsy Browning, and God bless her. And if it wasn't for her, I would have never gotten in Quiet Riot. But she actually took us to El Coyote, to meet you and Becky and everything. Yeah. So we go back a long way. Yeah. But it was a party. Back to your question, there was a lot of partying going on. I was young, I was 21. Everything was available. All the party stuff, the girls, it was all that stuff you do when you're 20, 21.
At the Rainbow.
Yeah. I'll never forget it. My 21st birthday there at the Rainbow, Michael brings me out a bottle of Dom Perignon and hands it to me. And I take one little sip out of a glass, and Yngwie Malmsteen grabs the bottle and takes off with it. Never saw it again, And he was drinking heavy.
Oh, God. Oh, yeah.
But, that's how long we've been going to the Rainbow. And, it's rock and roll. It worked for us for a long time, that whole party thing.
Yeah. What I really want to get from my question is, how long did it take you to build your trust factor, that people started trusting you? Like, this is the guy that I want to have in the bus because he's a cool hang. Now, of course, you have to know how to play. Yeah. You have to have the chops. But I don't think a lot of people came to LA without the chops.
I would think that's true.
And there was a lot of competition, because I know I was in the middle of the competition myself.
Yeah.
There was a lot of competition in town. But it all came down to basically hanging.
Yeah.
Who can we hang with?
And I had big shoes to fill. I was trying to fill your shoes.
Well, you got bigger feet than I did.
So, there was a lot of pressure there. But I was lucky enough that I came up in that club scene. And we played 5-6 nights a week in Florida and Indiana and stuff. And I knew that South Florida scene from where you were from. Yeah. And a lot of great musicians. So we got our chops together, at a fairly young age. And I was real fortunate with that, to be able to step into a situation. I was one of those guys that I've made every mistake in my career, in my life, and I've always been one of those hard-headed guys. I've made every mistake, but that's how I learned. Some guys, it went a lot smoother, but I made every mistake and picked it up along the way and learned what not to do, and
nobody really gives you a manual when you arrive to LA and say, okay, follow this.
Yeah.
And even if we did, will we read it?
Probably not.
Yeah. So, you have to do it on your own, because it's your life, it's your journey. You can't really have people telling you it's got to be this way, because, it would be a waste of a life not to make those mistakes. As long as you're not hurting yourself and others, it's just a mistake.
That's right.
You learn from that.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Everything else is a crime.
Well, I had some good influences to watch, and then you being one of them. I saw your very first headlining show at Market Square Arena in Indianapolis. And
with Ozzy. With Ozzy or Quiet Riot?
It was Ozzy. Actually, I saw Quiet Riot there.
Yeah,
but
Nazareth.
But I saw you at the something celebrity theater with Ozzy.
Oh, South Bend. No, in
Indianapolis.
In Market Square Arena.
I think this was a club gig. This was on the Blizzard tour.
Oh no, we really didn't do any clubs.
Theaters?
Yeah, it was the theater.
It was a theater.
The Market Square Theater, and I tell you, the Jacksons were playing at Market Square Arena the same night. Yeah. We actually recorded that.
Yeah?
That became one of the Westwood Ones or King Biscuit shows to replace the one that we did in Montreal a few months before because Ozzy was not happy with the way it came out. So we
sound or just the whole vibe, or what was it?
It was Ozzy, so it was like whatever it was. He picks up on things that other people don't.
Okay.
Like you might be listening to something and he hears it a certain way, completely different than you.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's he goes by gut feeling. He's one of those real. It's almost spooky. He'll see somebody come into the room and he's either going to hate him or love him.
Interesting.
Because he's got that. He's aware of certain vibrations that other people might not be.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
I did not know
when
that.
you add alcohol to it, and then you get a whole different thing. But as long as he's sober and focused, it's really amazing.
I'm sure that it is.
It really is. So, one of the things that I experienced, especially during the period that I joined Ozzy, was that prior to that, I had been struggling in L.A., and I knew that I could not get into the drug scene. Even if I wanted to. Let me put it this way. If I wanted to get into the drug scene, I would have just stayed in Florida. That's where all the drugs were coming in from.
Yes.
And everybody that I knew at the clubs or other musicians, they were holding. And I know I don't want any of that. I want to become a recording artist. And I knew that was going to get in the way. Because I saw other guys fall into that trap. Of doing drugs and partying. And before you knew it, years passed. And then you're married, you have a kid, you're divorced. And you got busted because now you're selling the drugs because you have such a huge habit that you got to... skim off the top and then sell it. It was awful. I know a lot of guys that wound up like that in Florida. Great musicians too, fantastic musicians. But that got in the way. So I knew that if I went to LA, this was my chance. It's a lot of competition, a lot of great musicians. Everybody that wanted to make it in the industry, like yourself, myself, we all went to LA.
Yeah.
We had that or New York, and New York was a bit too harsh.
Yeah.
The climate and the vibe of surviving in the city. So LA was a little bit more embracing, And but I so I stayed away from drugs and alcohol. Also, I got to witness some of my heroes at the Rainbow being wasted every single night.
Yeah.
And it was like, my God, what a shame. Look at this guy. I'll never be half as talented as this guy is, and look at him, he's wasted, So I learned from that. So here I am, I joined Ozzy, and, Randy had already been through the rite of passage of joining the band. So he hung out with Ozzy, did a little drinking, and said, okay, not for me, I'm moving on. Tommy was, as far as career, was a peer to Ozzy because Black Oak, Arkansas, and at Black Sabbath they toured together, and so it was like for Tommy that was like been there, done that. I'm not gonna be your drinking buddy. So I joined the band, and Sharon said, "Well, Rudy, would you be Ozzy's drinking buddy?" I thought, okay, I can handle this. First is Ozzy, it's freaking Ozzy. Who doesn't want to hang out with Ozzy?
Of course.
So, I'm hanging out with him, having a good time. But it got to a point that if I kept going in that direction, I would just ruin my whole life. I would become a derelict, alcoholic, whatever. Because there's something about Ozzy's, he can really handle drinking, especially back in the 80s. He was younger, 31, just turned 31. And he could really, there's something about English people that grew up with that culture of going to the pub and drinking at
tough
certain
drinkers.
hours. Yeah, like the crew and the English guys on tour with us. They would set their watches alarm.